So I want to welcome everybody to the 2025 International Congress on Evidence-Based Parenting Support. This is our second offering of this exciting Congress. What we're aiming to do is really enhance access and increase access to high-quality evidence-based parenting supports around the globe. Why do we want to do this? We want to raise our next generation to be happy, healthy, and productive. And by getting parenting support out there when and where parents need it, no matter where they live, this is our very lofty aspiration. So I am Sherry Shapiro, and I am honored to be the scientific co-chair for the United States for this Congress. More importantly, with me today is Georgia Miartan. Georgia has graciously offered to be our welcome speaker for the United States. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
You are so welcome. And before I pepper her with a bunch of questions, I would love to tell you a little bit more about Georgia. She's currently the president and CEO of the Central Carolina Community Foundation. This is one of the most important philanthropic organizations in the state of South Carolina. Prior to that time, she was the director of our state's child readiness agency called South Carolina First Steps. In that role, she supported school readiness for children 0 to 5 across our entire state. In addition, during that time, she enhanced access for parents to evidence-based interventions and supports. She also serves on the National Board of Parents as Teachers, has received numerous honors, and if that isn't enough, she is also the parent of 3 lovely children and has been on the parenting journey. So we know how challenging parenting can be. We also know how amazing and rewarding parenting can be. So I, again, thank you for spending some time, and I'd love to just ask you a few questions about parenting and parenting support. So from your perspective, why is parenting support so important?
When we first have children, I think we all experience joy and anticipation. And then we also have anxiety and fears and so many unknowns. If there's anything that parenting experience is marked by, it's the experience of unknown after unknown. And I think as parents, we come into that experience knowing that this is a critical period of brain development. If we get it right, we're setting up our children for success. And that sometimes looming feeling that if we don't have all the knowledge and information, if we don't get it right, if we don't approach parenting in the way that's optimal for our children, then there can be lifelong consequences, right? And we know that. Research shows that. I think most parents know that. And so this period is a period where it's so critically important for us to provide that support to all families across the world and across experiences and cultures.
I think you're so right that parenting is so full of anticipation and excitement and questions and worries and sometimes that nagging thought like, am I going to mess something up and it's going to be really bad for a very long time. So I think given that perspective, it is so important that we try to get parenting support out there in a way that's accessible. And I know that can be one of the challenges. So from your experiences running a state agency, supporting parents of young children and helping them getting happy and healthy and ready for school, what are some of the challenges that you see in getting evidence-based parenting supports out there into the world?
I think the challenges, Sherry, exist at all levels, right? At the family level, at the practitioner level, at the policymaker level. And so I want to talk for just a moment about each of those. I think at the family level, many parents know to turn to their medical provider at those well child visits. They're turning to their provider when they have questions or concerns. But those visits are really short and are packed with, immunizations early on, sleepless nights. Oftentimes you're coming into those visits with multiple children. It's not an optimal time to get that really deep supportive coaching. And zooming out to that practitioner level, so often if that medical provider doesn't have the specialized training to support a whole family 2-generation intervention, they're missing those signs of maternal depression. They're not screening for attachment or behavioral concerns early on. And then you think at the policymaker level, so often our policymakers are driven by a desire to do right by young children and their families, but they don't always have that knowledge. So often I'm in rooms, whether it's at the State House or at the United States Capitol, where I come in talking about early childhood and they think I'm going to talk about childcare. Well, childcare is really important, but at the end of the day, young children go home to their families. And so it's also that education, bridge making, if you will, to really help translate research and all the good that we know exists in the world of home visiting and parenting education that we know has efficacy in delivering not only health impacts, but as you mentioned, school readiness impacts, child welfare involvement decreases, even economic stability impacts. We need to be able to translate that to our policymakers so that they can better understand that parenting, home visiting, that these are resources and tools in their toolkit in serving families best.
It sounds like, given the vast experience that you have in working at both a state and a national level to promote parenting support, what are some of the key challenges that you faced, and any ideas that you might have to help overcome those would be wonderful to hear.
One thing we've all been struggling with is really supporting families in their active participation in the workforce. We live in a state, as you know, that has a booming and growing economy. Coming out of COVID, I remember many conversations around how do we support adults in re-engaging with the workforce and coming back to work. And oftentimes, again, that conversation, when it involved young children, would turn to childcare. But it was an interesting point when I had the opportunity to hear from employers who said, actually, the reason why the people who are working for me miss work and are not on the line at the manufacturing plant, it's because their kids are sick. It's because their young children are being suspended from preschool. It's because of issues. And I thought to myself, those are the issues that we can stave off when we provide support through parenting education, right? So you mentioned that I myself have 3 young children, and it's not always easy. And I remember a time where I and my family turned to parenting support through the Triple P program, an evidence-based model, and got that support and coaching, which then helped me be able to keep doing the job I was doing, my husband to keep doing his job, while our kids were in a much better place because we had that support, because we knew how to address those challenging experiences. So I bring that story up just to say, Sherry, that sometimes it's really taking the thing that we think we're trying to solve for in this story, workforce re-engagement, and showing the bridge between healthy, supported, thriving young children and families, and how that keeps a family as a whole economically stable and engaged. And when we can make those connections really directly for our policymakers, for our legislators, and frankly, even for families, then they and we are all more open to embracing the value and the importance of investing in parenting programs.
So it sounds like one of the most important things you've learned, and a lesson you're bringing forth, is the importance of making those connections and translating what we know from our research world that works, and how can we make that relevant for the audiences that we're trying to speak to. And it sounds like that can be a bit of a conversation. Is there anything else that you can share about how you what are the most effective ways to speak to those that are outside of our world of parenting support or our world of research on these programs so that we can be the most effective voice for spreading parenting support more broadly?
I'm chuckling over here, Sherry, if you see me smiling and holding it back, because when I would come into those rooms with parenting programs in my purse, right, I always felt like I had, 20 things in my purse of tools if I was bringing parenting into the room, right? So if I was talking to someone and they said, that their senator was on the health committee, then I could pull out a solution from parenting programs with that data behind it that shows how participants in home visiting and parenting education programs, that their children are more likely to attend their well child visits, right? And if you're talking to that, workforce economic kind of minded person, I shared that story. I think there is something for everyone in the parenting research space, but sometimes what we need to do on the research end is we almost need to make little index cards. We need to code it and say, here's a health solution, here's a child welfare solution, here's an adult solution. And to me, some of that is the research that has been most exciting to me that I didn't know, Sherry. I mean, I came into this space knowing some of these things, but to learn that a healthy, attached child, young child with their parent, that attachment is not only positively impacting the brain and neurological development of that young child, but also of the parent. And that's the case even if the parent is not a biological parent. And as an adoptive mom myself, that was really meaningful, right? So again, thinking about how do we take all of this great data, all of this great research, all these wins that you and your colleagues on the research side are surfacing, and how do we really deliver that in bite-sized pieces and relevant pieces to the policymakers or the leaders who really need to hear it?
It sounds like that translation and that connection might even trickle down to how we share information to parents, and with parents to be, and parents throughout their parenting journey. Is there anything in your experience that you can share that helps us get the message out to parents?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. And it is very parallel, as you said. So in South Carolina, we launched a portal where families would come to us and would say, here's what I think I'm looking for. And so often the terms that they would put in is, I'm looking for daycare, I'm looking for childcare. But we would respond to that with a question of, are you concerned about your child's development? Or do you see that your child has challenging behaviors? And with those kinds of questions, we could then deliver to the parent who showed up thinking to themselves, and let's be real, I can't do this anymore. I need my child in childcare because I can't handle this anymore. And what we were able to deliver is, yes, we can provide you with a match for childcare, and we can also provide you with parenting support so that when your child comes home at the end of the day in the afternoon, you are excited because you have the tools, you have the resources, you have the knowledge to be able to solve for those developmental concerns or those challenging behaviors. So really delivering even when that family doesn't quite know what it is they're asking for.
So it sounds like an important lesson is taking advantage of those opportunities when a parent might be seeking help or support. That's an avenue to provide a rich amount of information about all of the possible helps and supports that might be available. Mm-hmm. And I love what you were, part of what's underlying here is that parents, they know something about what they need, but they may not know what else might be available. So it's sharing that information so that we become partners with parents. We're not telling parents what to do, but we're opening up that conversation and helping them think about and reflect on, how is my child doing and what else might I need? And that's a beautiful moment to step forward with some awesome programs, solutions, and supports.
Yeah. And Sherry, I would add in to that responsiveness that we have to be responsive not only to what it is that parents need, but where they want it and when they want it. And so, again, when we think about the range of evidence based parenting programs, some are very brief interventions, some are longer term interventions. We have interventions that take place at the medical provider's office, we have others that happen in the home. We had some great experiences in partnering with parenting programs that happen inside of childcare centers when the parents are coming for pickup and drop off. So, again, just thinking about the lived experiences of families. And I said at the beginning that it's important for us not only to think about the experiences of our families, but to be responsive culturally. Through Parents as Teachers and that board, I've learned so much about what partnering with Native and Indigenous communities looks like, and how listening and honoring and shaping these programs and researching them from the lens of the consumer, the user, the families at the center, how that can lead to better outcomes.
I think you've just highlighted some of the most important lessons about providing parenting support. Culturally sensitive, well-timed, accessible, and one size does not fit all. That sometimes we need a little bit of support, sometimes we need a lot of support. And some parenting models are built, like Triple P, that are even built on that idea.
Yes.
That not everybody needs everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us can get by with just a little bit of information, but it has to be at the right time when we're able to actually hear that message.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Georgia, I think I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and to speak with our audience. As we approach this International Congress on Evidence-Based Parenting Supports, you have the opportunity to hear from experts like Georgia who have been in the field for a very long time. We have amazing keynote speakers, wonderful invited speakers, panels and workshops and opportunities for you to interact. We also have a parent day that's coming on the last day of the Congress. So I hope that you find something that you're looking for, and just know that things that we have out here that are being presented for the Congress, they will be available to you after the Congress so that you can go back, because sometimes you have to circle back a few times so that you can get everything out of it that you wanted to. So thank you.